Almine, we just received from you with the recent webinar the 288 Songs of the Earth. And to start with, could you shed some light how to work with these as a tool? Like, how would you say that you apply these like a Song of the Earth as a principle?
Yes, certainly. Here, there are just more and more of our beloved light family who are feeling the very uncustomary experience of deep depression. And the depression, when I take a look at it, it like washes over one. And of course, part of it comes from facilities like HARP that influence the emotions. That's why we have our light explosion. It's important to keep that up. But these are also to assist with depression. So if I analyze where does the depression come from, it's three things. Firstly, the fact that when you live in another reality, there is this wonderful, blissful feeling. But if you're dragged into human life too much, either through your choice, such as watching their depraved forms of entertainment, like their movies, and in the name of a good movie or a good review, they show the sordid parts of life. Media focuses on the sordid parts of life. Your view as a higher being is the poetical, the holy, the spiritual, and the real. But this can affect your point of view, and so you swing like a pendulum between the high and the low. When that happens, the low is very low. So you need something to boost this higher way of observing life through the cellular awareness. And these help with that. That is the first reason. Shall I just keep going with them?
Please.
Okay, well, the second reason for the depression is that we are doing so much self-work and we make changes within and we cannot see from our vantage point the broad ramifications that it has. For example, you can't see that when certain work eliminates certain hostile groups of people on Earth, that there is a raise in mortality rates. For instance, more people die because of work you did that made the role they played in this life obsolete. If 2/3 of the population of the planet is written out of reality, the story fills the gaps. You can't see the result of the work that you've done. So it feels like you're working and working almost with a blindfold on, just enough to see your next step, but you can't see the landscape change around you, which would make what you're doing more meaningful. And to feel like you're accomplishing something is really necessary. That's why I have given, the advice over the years, take a moment, see how far you've come from, say, 4 years ago, 10 years ago. See how different and more graceful and elegant and advanced your life has become. To discover you're an original one is the biggest Cinderella story ever told. But especially because, we wipe out memories, we can't see how we used to dwell amongst the ashes, come into this palace of knowing yourself to be a God being in the flesh. So take time to give yourself credit, because it assists on a journey where you can't see the effects and you can't even see how high up the mountain you've come. So that's the second, not being able to see the results. The third reason for depression is particularly strongly addressed by the songs of the earth. Humans find lots of things to die for. I'll die for my country, I'll die protecting my family, all of these things at a subconscious level. I'm dying because it's the only way that people can see how important my life in serving them really was. There's all these reasons to die, but there isn't enough reasons to live. So humans make up causes. I'm fighting for cancer victims. I'm fighting for legislation against these hostile substances in food or something like that. I'm fighting for a cause, and that gives my life meaning. Because we don't have agendas with living, we definitely do not look for reasons to be dying. Reasons to live often eludes us, and it's necessary for a life that's going along an eternal, endless journey without being subject to the tyranny of cycles of rebirth and life, etc. So what gives life meaning to us is the awareness that, okay, you see a little stream in the forest, but seeing just the stream, you don't see the interaction of the stream with the pebbles below, with the tadpoles that hatch, with the little underwater plants, with the leaves that fall on the stream. You just see a stream. This is shallow living. For instance, Songs of the Earth number 20, the tickle tread of the stream over pebbles. Can you imagine being one of those pebbles and being continually in this loving embrace and being stroked by the little stream's water? You can't imagine life without it as the pebble in the bottom of the stream. When these songs of the earth help us feel the aliveness of all things, the interactiveness of all things, the perspective of all things, this and the attitude of things. For instance, the bold display of the first crocus in the snow. It's like, yay, I'm a trailblazer. If I bloom, people know spring is coming. There's this boldness of something that breaks the snow, because it breaks more than the snow. It breaks the winter. And for those who don't like winter, like the plants underneath, it breaks the despair, shall we say, or the sleep of winter. Its boldness is an attitude. The confident height of the eagle's flight. This is number 18. What does it feel like to fly higher, to see further, to need no flock to validate your existence? The eagle feels it, and if for a moment we can feel it in ourselves. This, the pebble in the bottom of the stream, is being stroked, us being stroked by all the essential awarenesses of life. Reality is but the brain interpreting the essential information that you are experiencing. So the essential information comes in, the brain interprets it, that makes your reality. So the third reason for the depression, to be finding meaningful living, deep accessing of the aliveness of all things and feeling them inside yourself, like the boldness of the crocus. You are that. You are breaking the snow of forgetfulness. You are the confident of the eagle because you can see further. None of the little birds in the bottom of the valley are going to fly that high. They'd be too scared. They wouldn't have the strength, and they wouldn't have the perception. all of these qualities are within you. And as it awakens, you become more whole and you become more delighted. And the word actually is important, rapture. You become more enraptured with life. There is something that I am seeing that is so big, I can't speak about it yet. But I will definitely address it when I'm in Ohio. And it is to do with this. The angel Elafrimvael, when we spoke to him, he said that he saw the sun and the earth merge as something big that's coming. It is much, much, much bigger than that. And I am just starting to see that what he saw was a thread in a tapestry as wide as a mile. He saw something that, yes, it's valid, but no, it wasn't the end of the story. So the quality that is necessary for us, for this change to occur with grace, we will find to be rapture. And rapture, the songs of the earth promote our being enraptured with our environment by seeing through the eyes of a poet, of a master, of an intricate part of all that is, and all that is an intricate part of you. Their function cannot be overestimated.
Thank you. So then 2 questions I have about this, and probably you can answer them together. So the first would be is how, let's say you're sitting home alone in your room and you've got these principles. How would you select one, and how would you recommend a person then works with it? Like, what are the steps? And then my second question on a related note is, I can look at these principles and feel how evocative they are, but to articulate it in the way that you do and the way in which you sort of, unlock more of it and kind of like peeling back the layers, I would find that very difficult. So then my other question is, how do you recommend people even flex that kind of muscle, so to speak, to learn how to unlock the layers of these songs?
Okay. Well, let's first look at how to live them, because years ago I realized that nature isn't out there. We're not in here. And I remember telling my class at the time, you should be able to access nature, therefore, even if you were in a box, even if you are in a cell, you should be able to access nature fully, because it is you. And you can experience it within to the same extent as when you're there. The pounding passion of a desert storm. Sit in your chair, yes, and feel the desert air and smell, first of all. You can smell that storm is coming. And then when it finally, with its thunder and its lightning, because you usually find that in the desert, because the way that the desert makes clouds is different than the way the coast with its hills make clouds. The air has to rise to make clouds, the moisture-laden air. Against the coastline, it comes in from the ocean, but it's pushed upwards against the hills. I don't know how you say it, but it's the relief of the land that makes the clouds. In the desert, it's made by the heat. Hot air rises. There might be no mountains, but whatever moisture there is in that air in the desert rises from the heat. And as it goes up, it might gather more moisture, but eventually have billowing clouds, and those clouds are the ones that normally make this fantastic lightning and thunder storm. So sit in your chair, feel this. feel the heat rise and the parched earth beg for relief, and feel the passion that gathers. There is not that passion in the rain on the coast. It's gentle rain. In fact, I've taught myself just not to get wet in it. It doesn't have to be wet. So I don't use raincoats or umbrellas and things. I just walk in it, and minimal wetness, and it dries again. But it's gentle rain. And over the desert, because of the suffering of the land, of the heat, and actually it isn't suffering, it's accustomed to it, but the contrast makes the passionate, billowing rain clouds. You can feel that whole scenario without my explaining it. If you just hear inside and feel the air rising, 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 and then the passionate pounding of the desert storm. The clouds are higher, and when it rains down, it's like bullets in the dust. And you've got desert sound, right? It's bullets. It shoots down. And the raindrops are big. So you can feel it pound on the earth as it rains. The entire thing is a huge scene. You don't need to know science to know how all this interacts. Feel what each component is feeling. And, a little bit further down, the pounding passion one is number 11. But when you get a little further down to number 14, it says the storm's thunderous claim of the night sky. Before, what claimed the night sky? The stars. They were the main players on the stage of the night. But when the storm comes, all else is superseded. It says, this sky is mine. Watch me do a passionate dance and sing my passionate song, and everything else is backstage. It claims the night. My loves, we are claiming life on earth. And so, Rogier, you put yourself in the scenarios, whether you are in a box. That's the answer to your first question. Now, the second question of how do you see the meaning of it? Well, I honestly feel that it would be a very good idea either to set aside a time of the day and just read, say, the first 10 songs of the earth. And you will note, look at it the way you would if you were in a high school class or in college studying literature. There are themes that weave through little pieces of it. But each one has obviously got a theme behind the obvious. So you can put aside 2 or 3 a day and just feel that storm through you as you live your daily life. Let's say you're a secretary in an office pool. So all these little cubicles, everybody typing away, feels mundane, but not you. You carry the passion of the storm that starts in late afternoon by the time the air has risen, and by the night it claims it with its beautiful lightning sheets. And you're carrying the storm with you. No ordinary day for you. So you can take 1 or 2 and carry it with you. For instance, the one about the swan. And let me just see if I can find it really, really quickly here. 25? You're perfectly right. The majestic grace of the sailing swan. The opposite of this is somebody who does their daily work with hurry, 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 paddle like crazy. I feel so self-important because I have all these things waiting to be done by me. And then you have another way to live those chores with such grace and such elegance. The majestic grace of the sailing swans have paddling little feet underneath the water. But on top of the water, they majestically sail as if it's effortless. Do what needs to be done bit by bit by bit, but with an attitude of grace and this beautiful surrender to whatever is mine to paddle through this day. It's a whole different way of working. And in fact, if you feel that seeing, you can feel that it creates timelessness. That the frantic paddling isn't frantic anymore because it's balanced by the elegant sailing of the swan on top of the water. So carry one or two with them in your day. Feel how it changes your attitude. And then the other thing is to take a block. You take a block of, say, 20 or 10, and you feel, if you read them all through, there is a little golden thread of feeling behind them. That's your layer number one. Like if you take quivering scent of the rabbit, the glistening trail of a visiting snail, the caterpillar's balanced tread on the edge of the leaf, the flight of a feather on the wind. This is in the first 10 there. These are a lot different. If you study the 288 like a piece of literature, you will find a whole different style. Then, if, for instance, you look at number 278 to 288, whole different feeling about them. Because what these are saying, and you can feel it, it doesn't tell you what the rabbit is smelling. It doesn't tell you why his little nose quivers as he smells. It doesn't tell you about how the snail looks at coming across a beautiful little glistening trail of another snail. It just tells you a single note of feeling. Like the oils, there are oils with a single note. Our rose has multiple layers. It has Somalian rose. It has Moroccan rose. It has Egyptian rose. It has Bulgarian rose. And it has American white rose and red rose. And also a very small hint of tea rose. Those are the tiny little roses. All of this. But it's still a single note with layers to it. These are single notes. Like if you look at the first 10 vis-a-vis the last 10, they are single notes. They don't explain why, how, or where even. Not so much. I mean, you have to put yourself into the picture. But they are saying everything sings a song. That silver trail of the snail, each trail, now I didn't know this scientifically, but each trail is completely unique. That one snail encounters the silver trail of another snail, he knows who the other snail is, because that is the trail of glory we leave behind us as we move through our day. So number one is that you realize it's a single note that is being discussed. The flight of a feather on the wind, completely surrendered. It doesn't say whose feather, how the feather got there. No, single note. You feel that the single note of every little creature is within you. By feeling that note of the creature, you feel yourself. So first of all, recognizing what its single note is feeling like, layer one. Layer two, realizing this note is in me and exploring it. And then number three would be, okay, I find what this is. The snail is leaving my trail of glory. How do I live it? So feel the note, find the note in you, emphasize its expression in your life. First three levels.
All right. So But I'm still wondering, and maybe this is getting ahead of myself, like I can sense how evocative they are and experience them non-cognitively, but it still seems like accessing its detail the way you do is very much an art to learn. And I'm still picturing myself like if I was trying to instill the sense of this in someone who didn't have a poetic bone in their body, like how would I even go about it? And I'm not sure I would be able to sort of instill the wonder in them. So what would you say about that? Like how to go about that?
Well, it's like getting to know yourself. Most people don't have a clue what they even like because they only did what they should. They don't know the nuances of their being. And of course, nobody can ever know yourself because you can't know another. You don't understand a being that is as vast as all life, which is what you are. But you can try. Each one of these you can follow forever and ever and ever, layers of meaning below. Everything is like that. That, at the very least, teaches us not to take things at face value. But now, to get to what you're saying, say you want to know yourself, or you want to start to feel the way that I am explaining it. You start with a single little tiny thing. It's the end of the thread into the labyrinth of what you are trying to accomplish. I can explain and feel this because I have lived this way. I truly live this way. I feel everything around me speak to me from so many layers. My loves, you are my light family. You are also getting to that stage. Because that stage is part and parcel of the high level of evolution of consciousness where you are. If you couldn't do it before, you can do it now, but you must begin. The longest journey begins with a certain step. So, getting to know yourself. At first, all you know is, I like apples. Okay, then you write it down. So you buy yourself an apple a day. Because you're responding to something that you like, pretty soon, hey, I like apples and bananas. Okay, so you buy an apple and banana a day. But it expands as you tend to look with attention to the very first step. So how do you do your first step? Well, you read perhaps the first 20 of the songs of the earth, and you find one that really grabs your imagination. And perhaps it is the delicate footsteps of the rainstorm. Okay, well, clearly we're not in the desert for that one, because that one is like bullets in the dust. But the delicate little first footsteps of the rain, and then it's on your windshield when you're driving your car. When you get out, you can feel them against your face. And pretty soon, they're running like a little laughing stream down the furrow of the street. Or they gather in pools for children to jump in and their mothers to scold. It makes a whole new feeling of your day. But it begins with the little tiny raindrops and the delicate footsteps of the rain that's coming. So you understand from that this feeling of it begins small is also in me. But eventually it fills the reservoir for the people to drink of this town. So you realize, but it begins with the delicate little raindrops falling. Now this feeling is also in me. So second layer. So what this is that I have to feel. How the littlest act ripples and grows bigger and bigger as it expands, like a pebble that's been dropped in a pond. throughout many lives this day. You know, you find a beggar on the street, the only thing he has in his life is his dog. His dog is what he loves. There's a sort of a very thin dog standing next to him. And, you know, I'm sure you'll do better, but let's just pretend for the moment you go to McDonald's, you buy him a hamburger, and you buy his dog chicken McNuggets. And you drive your car around and you hand it to him. What touches him more than the act of food, because people hand him dollars all the time, is that you saw the importance of his dog. It makes such a difference. Now he goes to where the other homeless people stay. And now he's different with them, and it changes their life. And on and on and on. So you start with one that grabs your feeling. And as you learn to develop just that one, take days with it if you want to. Carry it in you to work. A little thing. When I used to go to Oregon State College, I would dress beautifully. And people in the class would come in their cut-off jeans and torn shirts because it's counterculture and that sort of thing. And I was in a psychology class, and I noticed that the professor was dressing better. And by the end of the term, gave everybody leave to dress nicely. Something that within them they wanted to do, but they were bound by the tribe of counterculture. We had this in school when Jeline was 8, 9, 10. I always bought her little pretty chains, you know, for a little girl, of bracelets and little necklaces, and she dressed beautifully. And pretty soon, all the other girls started doing the same. A little gesture, a bud vase with a flower on your desk. Pretty soon, everybody else grows a flower to put in their vase. And now they're in touch with the earth. They smile more. They're healthier. Little raindrops become a reservoir of water to drink. So you start with one little thing. You express it as one little thing, and you focus on one that grabs you. Once you address the apple, the banana will reveal itself.
So what about number 9, the Snowy Owl's Night Watch? What would you say about that?
Okay, well, now you're going into level 4. Let's go there. The Snowy Owl's Night Watch. It indicates that even though others cannot see at night, it can. It indicates that even though you are in a chaotic situation in your life, or just the traffic and the work and the this and the that, and family problems and laundry that needs to be done, and order in the house, and try and make a family that's happy when you're working and you're tired, even though you cannot see the purpose of it, there is a part of you that can see through the dark. And it watches, and it makes sure that the things that are presented in your environment are what you need to do your steps to get through to the dawn. It has deep meanings underneath. Now, you've gone through 2 layers. You feel the scene, you feel the significance of it to you. So now layer 3. Layer 3 would be that as I go through all this stuff of shredding my papers, finding the inbox, going through it, putting it in the outbox, I'm not right in the middle of such a contracted perspective. I am also, and this is part of Godhood, if you recall, I'm not only in the storm, I am the eye of the storm. There's a bigger part of you that steps back and watches from afar. And so You go through the motion and it becomes almost automatic, while the bigger you inside watches. That's layer 3, and it's an attitude you travel with through what otherwise would be a very contracted perspective. Now, layer 4. Aha. You have your dream symbols, beloved ones. You know, if not intuitively, from the dream symbols what certain things mean. The white owl represents death. What this is saying is that death stalks you. The snowy owl's night watch, what is he watching for? The field mouse that dares out under the moon. That's what he's watching for, his next meal. And then he's also watching the activity of the forest and everything else. But death is the white owl, and it stalks everyone. Now, death is there when you have a love affair with it, when you're engrossed in video games that kill. It's a simulated reality, but your body experiences it as real. So death frequencies enter the body. The snowy white owl is watching your life. Can it claim it? So if you go to movies where the main thrust is war and death, and again, you're putting those frequencies in you. It comes in through ears, eyes, touch, feeling, and words. So death watches all. Do not think you're immune with it and court it, is the layer 4 symbolic message of number 10. But, when we use the word desert, like the pounding passion of a desert storm, let's look at layer 4 on that one. Can I do that?
Please.
Okay, the pounding passion of a desert storm. The desert is the mundane life, the density, the going to the grocery store. Because of how empathic and telepathic you are, you can feel how worried people are, that whether they can afford an item. Is it on sale? Do I have a coupon to save me $1 off? You can feel the distress of need versus supply. It's a desert. You go into a restaurant and you can feel how people are there discussing relationships. They're wanting a partner. Please save me from myself. Please marry me. Don't fire me. Their relationships are need-bound all around you. It's a desert. What pushes the desert back? In the past, we've used the example of how a baby will suddenly just start passionately crying when you take him into a crowded place because he's pushing the density back. It is the pounding passion you feel that pushes the density back. And now, Rogier, I bet you're going to ask, how do you feel passion when you're in the grocery store? How do you feel passion when you're in the restaurant? And it's a valid question. Did I ask your question?
Yeah, one of them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, okay, sweetheart, I'm not trying to tell you what you should ask, but let's address that. The food that you buy in your restaurant, let it be fresh and wholesome. Listen to its song. It's like a song of the earth, the whole foods, the raw foods. If you eat meat, you're going to pick up a song of great discordance and distress. But feel the grains, feel the fruit and the vegetables, and only eat where there is pride in the people in the kitchen in what they produce. Now you pick up their pride of their creativity. You pick up the pride of the vegetable, that you have chosen it to nurture the body of a God. You feel its life. It should put you in total passionate bliss to access. What did this grain experience? Feel it on the stalk of grass type grain that it is. Feel its roots deep into the cool, dark earth. Feel it embracing the sunlight and growing up towards the sun. Feel it stand there in the moonlight. It's aware. The grain is in the moonlight, the cool light. And you can feel the life of what you're eating and feel passionate bliss to experience the perspective of the grain, of the vegetable, like the songs of the earth, the perspective, number 17, of the opulent bravado of the peacock. Here I am. Aren't I glorious? How can you possibly resist me? It is bravado for the female that it is courting, with its wonderful tail spread out in these luminescent colors in the sunlight. Feel the perspective of what you're eating. This will push back the density of what is around you. And in fact, alchemically, it will change it. It will change the desperation of the people around you. When you're in the grocery store, go to the vegetable section, the organic vegetable section. Otherwise, you're going to pick up the discordance of the chemicals, how it affected plant life. Go to the organic section. Go to the breads. Feel them. If they're organic with seeds and sprouted wheat and things, feel how beautifully they're made. Once you do that, you cannot buy the dead foods anymore. And it changes the alchemy in there.
I do have one sort of main question, but I'm still vaguely wondering how, if you were predisposed to only have a very sort of superficial experience of that kind of imagery, or when you're trying to feel those things, how you could break through that.
You just start with one that grabs you here. You start a long journey with one step. And as you apply these things that I've spoken of, how do I live it? How do I feel it? What is it of me? And then if you want to go to layer 4, what is the symbolism of the words used? Then what happens is you're wetting your toe with one, and then you choose another, and pretty soon they all speak to you. Can I add one more thing? The excited chatter of flocking swallows. Oh my gosh, when swallows flock in early September, here on the coast at least, might be August in places with more severe weather. But when they flock, I don't even know they're flocking, but I can feel them in me like an excitement. This is such an adventure. See, to go back to the very first thing I said, these beings, they don't care. A swallow gets how old? A few years, and then he dies. And then his offspring comes to the same place to nest. But it doesn't matter the length of his life. He is vitally engaged in whatever it is that swallows do. Watch them in the spring when they come back. The way their courtship, they're aerial acrobats. They fly through the sky at such a speed, attracting, following one another. There's a whole aerial language they speak as to, I want to mate with you. Yes, okay, I will be your mate. Okay, let's make a note. They twitter and they're excited. Their perspective is your gift. The songs of the earth gives you, and this is an important statement, 288 other perspectives. It gives you 288 other perspectives. I have said that the currency of the dream was energy. The currency of the awakening stages is perspective. The more perspective you gain, the more parts of you awaken. And these are 288 perspectives. So, did that answer your question or not really?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
So, when this episode will be first broadcast, it will be on July the 21st, 2018, which will be day 2 of the Ohio retreat, where tentatively we also have what you called the jump-off point of exiting the grid, possibly. So can you speak a little bit about these songs of the earth and how they feature in building this one sort of component of our frequency chamber, I guess, together with the runes?
Yes. Well, for those who are listening to this at the same time that we are having the Ohio retreat, during the Ohio retreat, I will be explaining and working with and bringing alive the 8th and the 9th. I've only promised the 8th, but I also want to do the 9th rune sets. And they awaken one set of frequencies needed for where we're going. And you will, on the other hand, if you can feel what I'm saying, be awakening this particular extremely important songs of the earth, their frequencies. And as you awake and feel them, this whole new perspective is born. Your new perspective is a result of the alchemy of a 288 equation, birthing a new perspective. When you add up the oils, the songs of the earth, the runes, and the principles of godhood and pristine humanness, when you add up all those that are awakening within, it equals evolution through rapture. It itself is an equation of alchemy. All of life is. But it equals evolution through rapture, which is essential for what is to come. And I will be able to explain this fully during the August premiere webinar, what is to come. A lot of that will be figured out during the Ohio retreat, and I will get additional information, put it all together, and present it during the August retreat. So, in fact, the August retreat is about evolution through rapture. And that is what all of these equal together. Rogier, before we sign off, can I just explain about the larger themes? Because I neglected to do that during the Songs of the Earth. The larger themes, for instance, you will find that the whole first group of the Songs of the Earth are, as I've explained, single notes. The single notes are telling us that everything in your environment has a song that it sings that is the result of a unique perspective. Hear its song, gain its perspective, so that you can evolve through rapture. So, the feather on the wind it has this complete surrender because it knows itself to be completely safe, completely cared for, completely sustained by the air, no matter where it is. It all says the same thing. Now, there is a theme that I found as an example in many of these, and it comes in chunks. And that is how important the self-importance we give, how silly that is. For instance, the ants, they view themselves as an extremely important army. They have a general, the fighter ants that keep them in line. They do their duty. They are extremely proud of the fact that they can carry a big chunk of leaf even though they're just a little ant. And they're regimented and they're disciplined and they follow orders. The hive depends on it. See the self-importance the ant gives himself? The dependence on the future ants, the queen, everything for them, it depends on me. So the self-importance. And then an autumn leaf, because they're preparing for the winter, an autumn leaf flits down from the tree and falls across their trail. And all of a sudden, they're scattered everywhere, complete chaos. What now? Our trail's been blocked. How do we get back? How do we know what to do? Complete chaos. It tells you that self-importance binds you to act a certain way. And because life doesn't like ruts, it will come and obstruct it. And then your self-importance makes it that you're not in tune with your inner guidance because you lived according to outer guidance. You see, there are many like this that will tell you themes. This self-importance, the monkeys are up in the tree top. They're far more important than the rabbit down below the tree. So, they think they're so important because they're on the hierarchy because they can climb a tree. And then along comes a person, now it's not the kind of thing we put in here, and scares them away, or chops down their tree. There is no shelter for self-importance, but the self-importance of things in and of itself makes the pageantry of life. So you look at, like for instance, this theme of being trapped by self-importance, 285. His name is Clarence the Great. Aptly named, he is the undisputed master of the household and the unchallenged champion of all the neighborhood cats. His regal stroll down the alley sends terror through the mice kingdom. He's just a cat, but you can see the self-importance that he gives himself. And for us, it doesn't say that it's folly. It says, oh, isn't he cute? This little fluff ball thinks he's the king. It helps us deal with the self-importance of humans. If we see them as children because they don't have the vision to be otherwise. So watch their self-importance, with an inner chuckle. Now, this being trapped by self-importance is in 286 again. This is running as a theme. 286, in his bowl, the bowl is the belief systems, on a table in front of the mirror is the environment, the goldfish and his reflected friend swim round and around in circles, following each other's examples. See, this is saying the bowl, but they follow each other's examples, but they're reflections of each other, which means they repeat the same things. This is social learning. Now, if you go up to 284, with a superior attitude, a little girl bathes her doll. Mimicking her mother, she admonishes her to wash behind her ears before dressing her for a bedtime story. See, the mother, feeling very important because she's the mother and she's bathing the little girl and she knows best, this superior attitude that accompanies any form of expertise we see again and again in, for instance, doctors. Doctor, I'm coughing. Oh, yes, well, it could be this or it could be that, but I think you should take 2 of these pills and go home to sleep. And you just take them because he's the doctor, right? The importance that we attach to any area in which we regard ourselves as expert, like Clarence the Great thought he was a mouse killer, the expert slayer of mice. So self-importance attached to this is passed on from generation to generation. The little girl saw the attitude the mother had when she was caretaking her child. Oh, I'm so important. I know how to deal with babies or children. She mimics it with her dolls. So this theme of self-importance trapping us, social learning trapping us, the goldfish, is carried through these last ones. You know, there is a way to turn this around, and it's given in 287. 287 says, with little bells tied to her shoelaces. You can see these are much more complex because these are dealing with the songs of humans when it's discordant, how to deal with it. So the little bells tied to her shoelaces, the 4-year-old follows her mother through the store. A practical solution to make sure the child doesn't wander off, because her mother's focusing on the groceries, but she can hear when the little bell is going a different direction. Her mother could not have foreseen the delight of the little girl as she imagines herself to be Tinker Bell the fairy. Okay, it was supposed to be a way to keep the child in tow, but it becomes a delight to the little girl because she thinks she's Tinker Bell the fairy. So, my loves, you know, it has been said that when a professor is standing there yelling and screaming at you, imagine him in his pajamas brushing his teeth. Okay, imagine things and that make it easier for you to see how ludicrous the self-importance of humans are. You know, somebody who can bake cakes is very important. Don't touch those eggs. They need to be at room temperature. It makes a better cake if the eggs are not out of the fridge. But you told me always to put the eggs in the fridge. No, those are for my cake. Okay, it's done with self-importance because I know and you don't. But if you can see that this person is playing house, she's just like a little girl playing house. It makes it easier. You can only see this when, like the snowy owl, you watch the night that has descended upon humans for the moment before dawn, because you're the bringer of the dawn. When that snowy owl goes back to his tree, he hoots. I know this because I was on a mountaintop for 4 days. In fact, 3 days somebody came to fetch me, so it only turned out to be 3.5 days, no food, no water, high up on a mountain. And the owl in the valley below would call to announce that it's night. And he would call to announce that it's now safe for the mouse to come out. I'm going back to sleep. So he is also the bringer of the dawn. You are the bringers of the dawn, but watching the folly of humans in the night, watch from a distance the way the snowy owl does. Just watch and see them as little children playing. And then you can make of their actions poetry rather than dysfunction. But watch for these themes that come through the different groups of them.